What I thought I'd do today is talk about what an encapsulated tang is on a fixed blade knife. And this is started because of this knife here. This is the Rough Rider Highland Bowie. This is the latest one that has come out. And this one does indeed have a full tang. But when it was first released, it had what was known as an encapsulated tang. And Rough Rider was unaware of that and sold it as a full tang because it was supposed to be a full tang knife. But the makers of the knife were unable to do that, so they gave them what was basically an encapsulated tang. Now, a lot of people go, what's an encapsulated tang? So, well, I have another Rough Rider knife here, and this was at one time the Rough Rider Mountain Man Bowie. The handle was falling apart on it, so I took the handle off, and lo and behold, it has an encapsulated tang. And what that means is you have a partial tang that enters through the guard and into what is the handle of the knife. And then the encapsulated tang is secured somehow to the handle. Now, this is not something that the Chinese or the Pakistanis or someone like that came up with to turn out cheap knives. This is a practice that has been done for centuries on knives. This is not a new idea. It is not something that's like, oh, well, I'm just going to turn out crappy knives by creating a blade and then creating a handle and sticking it together. The reason it was done for the longest time is because, well, blade steel costs more than the handle steel. That's part of the reason. But also, this allowed the knife makers, and actually originally the sword makers, because swords were blades that often had an encapsulated tang. So they would make the big long sword blade, and then they would create a basically some kind of push tang that would go into a handle, and the handles were made specific for, whoever was going to be buying the sword or whatever. And this allowed for the a better quality steel to be used on the blade itself, and then the proper handle to be fitted to the knife or sword, and then you could actually get the right balance and everything else. So there's a lot of reasoning behind an encapsulated tang. And depending on how that tang is attached to the handle, it's not necessarily a bad idea. Now, if you notice here, there are two cuts here. Notice how they're the way that is. And then it's been welded. So what happened was the guard is put in place, the handle is pushed up against it, and then it is locked in place and then welded. Now, depending on the tang could be longer or it could be shorter or whatever else. And you can see here even that this tang could be a little bit longer if they wanted to do that. Sometimes that space is left so that there won't be any vibration or anything transferring back and forth. Also, sometimes you'll see more welding going on so that you have a stronger weld for the knife or for the blade to hold on to the handle. And that is really where the criticism would come in with something like this encapsulated tang on this particular knife. The thought that, well, the tang is going to break more easily or something. Well, yes and no. There are a lot of full tang knives out there that have hollowed out portions of the handle, so the handle could break at any point. Where the issue comes in with something like this is how much of the blade is passing through the handle and how it is cut at that part. So what you really typically want with a tang when it is passing through, now this is actually a push tang on a diver's knife. The hole is actually in front of where the push tang would be, but the shape here is really kind of what you want to see when the handle is or when the blade is tapering down into the handle portion of the knife, or the tang portion of the knife. You notice how this one kind of curves in. This gives no exact spot for where it is going to break across. Obviously the hole is a weak point on here, but if this was solid throughout and you had it narrowing down like that, that would be a little bit better. So sort of what you're seeing here on this, this is a full tang here. Notice how you just have a very small step there where the guard will go up against, and then when the handle narrows, it begins to narrow slightly. It doesn't just cut over right away. So that's where the real weak spot is here, and that is in front of the guard. The tang going back into the handle, doesn't really matter how far in it goes. It would be nice to have it going a little bit further if you're going to be doing more welding on it to hold it in place. Then the next part that helps keep the knife from moving around is the handle itself, or the scales, or the handles that go over the metal portion of the handle here. That should be nice and tight and should provide extra strength to prevent the encapsulated portion of the tang from moving side to side. That's really where you could cause it to break. If this tang, the encapsulated tang, can move either way, then you have a chance of it breaking. It's not going to break while you're hitting and such like that. That's the problem with an encapsulated tang. And if you have a knife with an encapsulated tang and you feel like the blade is moving but the handle isn't, then you have a broken tang on an encapsulated tang. The welding has broke, or however they have attached it has broken free, and then you have an issue, because as you notice, it has these little cutouts here that prevent the blade from sliding forward. However, if the blade can move, if the welding breaks, then you have an issue, and you have a potential where the blade will break in front here because the tang is no longer secure. But as long as that encapsulated tang is secured into the handle through welding or whatever, you have a good strong hold on it. And the more likely place for this to break, and it has nothing to do with the encapsulation, is in front of the guard here, where the blade quickly stepped down to a smaller size. At least it kept the same thickness, though. That's the important part. Okay, as long as we got that out, let's cover a little bit about full tang in general, because in theory, this can still be considered a full tang. It is a push tang, though. Notice it's not the same size as the rest of the handle is going to be. But people will call this a full tang because it is going the full length of the handle of the knife. It is a push-through tang, and then this one will be screwed on with some kind of nut or something like that, because this is a diver's knife. That is why you will often see the Camilla's fighting knife referred to as a full tang knife, because as you can see, the push-through tang, the push tang, goes all the way through the handle to the end and then is pinned in place. And that's why it's referred to as a full tang, even though most people would say, that's not a full tang. You know, this is what a full tang is supposed to be. That's not a full tang. Yes, it is. At least among a lot of knife makers, they will still consider that a full tang, but they will often refer to it as a full push-through tang. A push tang that does not go all the way through the handle is just referred to as a push tang, or a partial push tang, or a partial tang. But once it goes all the way through, they usually refer to it as a push-through tang. And a push-through tang is not the same as a rat-tail tang. Now, this is the British Commando dagger. I've added a little tape here for this for a purpose. But as you can tell, this is a narrow rod, and then it has screws on threads on the end here for a nut. This is more what is a rat tail tang. A rat tail tang is very thin. Notice it is not the same as what you see on a push-through tang. A push-through tang is typically as wide as the blade is, or as thick as the blade is. It just steps down so that it will go through a handle, but it is flat and it is wider than a rat tail tang. Rat tail tangs are very thin, and then they're usually threaded. Sometimes you'll have a push-through tang that is a partial push-through tang that will go in maybe about that far, maybe a half an inch, 3/4 of an inch, and then the rest of it will be just a long screw that is welded to it that passes the rest of the way through, and that is also referred to more as a rat tail tang. This is very much a true rat tail tang, and then the handle just fits over it and you screw it on. So that's the difference between a rat tail and a push-through tang. And a partial tang, on the other hand, is a slightly different animal altogether. And that is like so. And this, if you notice, it's pretty much full on both sides. It's the same width as the handle, but it only goes in a certain distance. And this is a lettuce knife, so it's something that is just used for chopping and stuff. You really don't need the full handle. If the handle breaks, you'll just get a new piece of wood and rivet it in place. But one of the main reasons that people do like a full handle or a full tang knife of this sort is even without a handle, you can still use the knife. If the covers fall off, or if the scales fall off, you can still grip this and use it as a knife. You can do that as well with something like this, but it's not nearly as easy or as comfortable, but at least it's easy to replace the handle once it falls off. That's why you want a full tang if possible, especially on some kind of knife that is used out of doors. This is used in agriculture, so it's not that big of a deal. But if your life depends on it in the woods or in combat or something like that, then a full tang knife is something that is more preferred. But as far as a encapsulated tang, it is not something that is just used on budget knives. If you see any company that has a lot of handles that look very familiar, they may be using a lower grade steel for the handle for all sorts of practical purposes, and then offering different blade stock, for the cutting blade, a stainless blade for the same handle, or a carbon steel blade, various grades of stainless steel, something like that. And what they might be doing is actually using a push tang of some kind that is being encapsulated into a handle, even on an expensive knife. So it is nothing. It is not something that is just a sign of a cheap knife, regardless of what some people may want to say. Like I said, it's been around for centuries. It is not some new idea or anything like that. And was very much common practice in the world of sword making to use an encapsulated tang so that you could get the right handle for the right person and have a good blade going on. And you did not want to waste money on the handle of the knife, because this part might be totally different in the heat treating and everything else. In any case, with that said, I guess I've rambled on enough about encapsulated tangs and the other types of tangs out there, and I know there's going to be plenty of people who are going to say, no, that's not right, or anything else. It's what I've heard, it's what I've seen, it's what I've read. And I know I have read other people look at these things in a different way. But I do know one thing: this is nothing new, the encapsulated tang. been around for centuries.